In a previous video, we downloaded some data from a website called schooldigger.com. There were three different databases, one for elementary school, one for high school, another one for middle school. And I combined them into one spreadsheet that you see here that has quite a few schools, something like 1,300 altogether for the state of Oregon. And what I would like to do is plot these into something more interesting, where you're comparing test scores at each one of these schools with, say, poverty, the number of kids that are living in poverty, measured by students that are eligible for free and reduced meal. They've signed up for a reduced price that they pay for a meal. That's one of the only public indicators we have of poverty. And I have all of this data organized so that column A, which would become the x-axis in a chart, and that would be the horizontal axis, and then the y-axis is in column B. When you begin to make a chart, you should just select the X and the Y data. Notice I did not select the header. And I'm going to go down to the bottom, and I can just drag this thing all the way to the bottom. Well, it's going kind of slow. I have 1,300 pieces to select. An easier way is just to select some of them at the top, drag your cursor elevator all the way to the bottom. As you can see, I'm at the bottom, and then hold the Shift key down and select the bottom right-hand B column in this case, and it selects all of them. So I start at the top in the A column and select the lower right corner, and then I've ended up selecting the whole A and B. And that's necessary in order to tell Excel these are the two columns you're going to plot in a graph. And I go up here to Scatter Chart. I pick the one I want, which does not have lines in it, and the chart shows up. Well, this is kind of a dummy chart in that it's inside your current worksheet to show you that you selected the right data, but that's about all. I would like to move it to its own page. And over here on the top right is Move Chart. Click that. Click the button that says New Chart, and I will call this 2D Oregon Schools. So this is the primary data set of all schools. I can add more data sets. It has created its own tab down here called 2D Oregon Schools, and I can move that anywhere I want along the bottom. I traditionally always keep my charts off to the right so I know where they are. Don't have to. I notice there's some things that need to be changed, though. I wouldn't want to take this into an educator. It'd be interesting, but there's no titles on it, lots of missing things. First off, I always put a least squares line in, and you have to do that up front. Otherwise, other changes you make will get erased if you put that line in last. And it actually enhances the data so that there's more lines. I can see precisely where schools are in the X and the Y axis. And I can see that there is this incredible trend that kids who are in a higher degree of poverty, that is, there are more kids in poverty in the schools, score considerably less than the schools that have less poverty in the schools. It says nothing about race, ethnicity. It just purely has to do with how well off are the parents. Well, to clean up the chart a little bit, I've got some real estate being used by a ledger here that I think I'll get rid of by just highlighting it, hitting the delete key or the backspace. Do that, and that opens up the chart quite a bit. I also notice there's no title at the top. Well, when the chart is active, like it is right now, you have these three tabs up at the top. If the chart is not active, those tabs go away. So when I click the chart itself, the three tabs show up, and I'm in the Design tab. I go into the Layout tab, and right here I have a little thing that says Chart Title. And I'm going to put a title up at the top just by clicking, and it's just a dummy, and I fill it in, highlight the characters, and start typing, I always like to add what I found on schooldigger.com, and that is that this is for school year 2012-13, and it's for grades 4, 8, and 10. And it's also the Oaks test. That's what Oregon calls their high stakes form of testing. I don't know exactly what Oaks means. Every state has their own testing mechanism, and they have their own name for it. Educators get very interested when you're talking about their school and how it fits onto these charts. So they start asking questions about what exactly do you have, and that's why I add this whatever School Digger had in it to begin with. But I also usually try to add some more data, like what is the X and the Y axis representing. And starting with the Y axis, over here we have combined average of test scores. And you can clean this up later, versus percent eligible for free and reduced lunch. Some states call it free and reduced meal, but it's a federal program. I'm having a little cursor issue here. Maybe I'll have to fix that later. I can't actually change the spelling of that without messing up the chart. So I'll fix that in a minute. I can center this title. I have some axis titles too. I can put in test scores. I can put in percent free and reduced lunch. So I've identified what these various X and Y axis are. I also notice, you can see here I've got like 200. The maximum happens to be 200, and that's what Excel put in, but sometimes they put in 220, 230, and this is 100%. It has a decimal point, has something after the decimal point, a little maddening. I can go up here to this axis statement, and I can fix those, and I can go down here to more functions. It brings up this spreadsheet. First off, I want to make sure this is fixed at 100, that it doesn't change, that Excel, if I do this again, doesn't change the axis to 120, 150. I also want to let it know that there shouldn't be a decimal after the 100, so I have to unlink it from the source data. The source data had one decimal, so I unlink it by unchecking, and then I change this to 0, and you'll see, bingo, the 100% down here does not have a 0 after it. And I again go up here and I'll fix the vertical axis. Do essentially the same thing. I'm going to freeze it at 200, and I'm going to change the number by unlinking it and making it a 0. So I've now fixed these two side titles. I can also adjust these data points. I can click just one of the data points, and if I click it again, I'm going to get just that one. So the first time, like I deactivate the chart, then I go over and just pick out a data point and click it, and it actually selects all the data points. I do a right click on it, and I go down here to Format Data Series. And it's the primary series. There is only one at this point showing on here, and that's all the schools. And I can begin to manipulate the fill, for instance, like there's solid blue. That's automatic. Let's go up here to no fill and see what that looks like. Oh, that's interesting. It actually, to me, looks a little better because I'm going to visit a school district tomorrow, and I want to take this chart along, and I'd like to show their schools where they are exactly in this whole state picture. So I've somewhat played down the whole state schools by doing that. Interesting way to fix it. Let's add another data series. Suppose I click one of the one of the points again, and I go to the surface of the spreadsheet and I right click and I say select data. It brings up this rather confusing dialog box that the series that is highlighted in my data is right here. This is the X and the Y. You can see where I had selected it earlier. It's series 1. This shows some of the data. Well, what I want to do is add one district. Let's say this is Oregon, so let's say Beaverton, Oregon. I'll click add, and I'm going to give it a name. And then over here for the X value, it's going to want to know where are the Beaverton schools. I click the X icon, and it'll allow me to then click the data. And I can then search for the Beaverton schools. Now, you need to understand, I previously sorted this data before I started so that the school districts were all together. And I go down here a little ways, and I see the start of the Beaverton schools. And the X value is in row 37. And I go down here until I no longer see any Beaverton schools. And as you can see, that's the last Beaverton school. Well, all I'm going to select is the X value. That's the A column. So I let up on the mouse, and I click back on the icon. And now it's going to want the Y value. So I click here. I go back to my Beaverton data, which started in 37. It's already sitting there at 37 by coincidence. On a Mac, that isn't the case. It sits at the bottom, not the top. But it's at the right place, number 37. And I go all the way down to, again, what was it, 94. And I select all the Y values. So now I'm done. I've selected the X and the Y. I'm going to call it Beaverton, and I click OK. And I click OK again for the second data series. And you can see the Beaverton schools now are right there on top. I've done a lot of manipulating here, and I could change by, again, just selecting one of the data points from Beaverton and then doing a right click, going down to Format Data. I can then manipulate the second series of data and change the size of the marker and so on. But for right now, that's red is fine. It would print in black and white as black. So it'd be easily seen. Let's suppose I want to save this chart as a template. I could save probably a lot of time by, you know, applying some of these changes to a chart fairly easily and quickly with a template. And all I do is under the Design tab, when the chart is active, I just click here, Save as Template, and I give it a name. Let's call this, you know, Base Chart. I'll call it Base School Charts, and save it, and it puts it in the right place so that when I go back and let's say I'm going to build a chart, like here I'm back and I've selected all of the A and the B data, X and Y data, and I want to build a chart, I go up here to Insert a Chart, a Scatter Chart. I pick Scatter, and you've seen this before. This is where we were before. And I want to make a separate page for it. All that is just the same. We'll call that Chart 2 with Template. And I'll click OK, and bingo, it created a new tab. And now I'm going to apply that template. I go up here to change chart type, and I'll see templates listed. And there is, when I hold my mouse on it, Base School Charts. I apply that by clicking it, say OK, and wow, look at that. It's done a lot of the work for me. It saved the titles. It put the title in here, you know, which I can now fill in because this would probably be for a different state or a different school set. It changed all of the axes. It gave me a place to put a title in there and so on. So it saved me a lot of time. Another thing I can do is I can add labels. Let's suppose that I am going to visit the Beaverton schools, and they would like to know, what is that school? Because I'm probably going to talk about that school. It's the lowest performing school they have, but it's also the highest free and reduced lunch or poverty. And I'm sure it'd be a topic because there's other schools that actually have more free and reduced lunch, higher poverty, but are doing better. One way to add labels, besides building text blocks for each school, is to get an add-in from what is it, associates of some kind, templates. I'd tell you what you do. You do a search on XY chart labels, and I think it's like program professionals or associates. They have this free download of probably one of the most popular chart labeling systems out there, and I have got it right here. I've added on, there's instructions after you download it how to do that, and I want to add labels. It brings up this little dialog box, which already I've selected just the, before I clicked add labels, I selected the Beaverton, one of the Beaverton dots. So it knows I'm after Beaverton. I could select Series 1, but it automatically came up Beaverton by just clicking here and pick Series 1, which is all the schools. Then it says select the range. Well, in order to do that, I have to click this side button here, icon, converts it into a little dialog box like this. I go back to my original data, and now I got to be very careful because the names of the schools have to match exactly with how many data points there are. If it's off by one data point, that is, I missed a school when I selected it, like here we are at 37, and looks like Findlay is the elementary school name. That would be the top of the Beaverton set, and if I don't select exactly the right number, it on a Mac anyway, it totally blows up. I don't know. I haven't done it on this enough to know what it'll do if I miss. Be a fun thing to do some afternoon. Reinstall Windows 7. I don't know. Anyway, I've just picked the names of the schools as carefully as I can. Now it wants to know, um, do I put the label of what the name of the school is above it or to the right of it, below it? I'm going to put it to the right just to see what it does. Now this can be kind of messy because there's quite a few schools, as you'll see. Whoop, I selected the wrong number. Well, that was fun. Turns out it doesn't blow up. After all, I can just go back to the data set, select the correct number. I got 3 too many, even though I was trying to watch real close. And now, as you can see, the school names have begun to appear on the chart. Now, as I indicated, this is messy, and it would be nice if you maybe shorten the names first. That's one suggestion. For instance, back in the chart data, here are the names of the schools, and you could get rid of the word high school. For instance, just put HS. You could change junior to JR, change elementary to EL, and that would make all the names smaller. You can change the font so that you select one of these or all of them, and it will. The first time you click the chart, it selects all, and the second time you click the same one, it'll select just that one. So I can then change its size, if you will, by going to the home and change it to 8, and you see that one got much smaller. When you print it, then it will be readable, but it doesn't get messed up with all the others. We're talking about like 50 schools here, so it gets rather complex. But you can select one and you can move it around. And you could pull some of them out of the center and draw a line in pointing to the actual school. I've actually done some charts. Takes an hour or so, and cleaned it up for the Seattle School District, which has over 100 schools. I think it would be very difficult for like LA Unified. You'd have to take maybe a part of the city, maybe elementary schools only, and build a chart showing those schools, and if you want to actually name them. So that's how it works. That's the way you go through building these charts. And I wish you all the best. If you need some more help or assistance, consider giving me a call or send me an email at bhughes@policygov.com. Thank you.